And welcome back to part 2 of discussion on Aquaman action figures and Aquaman related characters. I'm Steven, and today I will be covering 3 such characters in particular. We have here Kingdom Come Aquaman, designed by, based on the art of Alex Ross, and then The Brightest Day, Queen Mera, and the second Aqualad, Carl Durham, I believe, if I got the name right. So let's start with Aquaman here. The Aquaman here is based on Alex Ross's art on the Kingdom Come series, and I like this particular Aquaman. He looks very dramatically different from other versions because he looks like an actual king who is wearing robes rather than an orange shirt and green pants. And his attire looks very much, or reminds me very much of King Arthur. Is that a coincidence that Aquaman's real name is Arthur and King Arthur? I'm not sure. And King Arthur's last name was Pendragon as well. And of course, Aquaman doesn't have any dragons, but he has a seahorse on his crest, as his royal crest. He also has here a sword that cannot be removed, it's just sculpted on. He comes with a trident, but this is not his original trident. I couldn't find his actual one, so I used from one of the other Aquaman figures to serve the purpose. The articulation is very limited, as in most of figures that were based on Alex Ross art, because they were just made really for purpose only display. You couldn't really do much with them other than that. They're not articulated like, let's say, Marvel Legends. But anyway, since talking about articulation, let's see what he got. He can move arm up and down. There is no side movement of the arm. He has a wrist articulation. The other hand is sculpted in a fist form. The cape is molded on, made of soft rubber, and it has design in 2 colors, green and red. He's wearing a crown on his head that's also sculpted on. You can move his head left to right. There is some problem moving it all the way because his hair is sort of blocking the movement at the back, but it's not a big deal. He can move his legs about that much, and they're kind of moving sideways, not straight forward. There is no articulation in the knees or the ankles, nothing in the waist either. And he's practically wearing this gold mesh, a chainmail of a sort, all around him, and then the royal robe across it with the cape. So that's pretty much how he looks, but as I said, even though he has very limited articulation to him, I still like the way he looks, because this is how I imagine Aquaman looking as the actual king on the throne of Atlantis. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Aquaman has always been, at least in the past, according to some fans, been always getting a bad press, because it seems that nobody ever really took him seriously, that he's a really great hero like Batman or Superman or some of the other ones. And I understand that based on some of the research I've seen, people never really, or the kids or people in general, never really took him seriously, because I guess also in the Super Friends cartoon series, he looked just way too silly to be taken seriously. But the thing is, I grew up around that same time period myself, and I always liked Aquaman. I don't remember him because back then he didn't have a long hair and a beard and all that. He had short hair, that's his classic look, no facial hair whatsoever, and he was wearing orange shirt with green gloves and pants, and he had a trident, and he's able to communicate with the creatures of the sea and ocean. So that was enough for me. I think he was just fine. But later on, of course, to attract readers and to reinvent and reimagine Aquaman, he started going through changes in his appearance. Also in his personality, he became more aggressive, sometimes very hard-headed as well. But anyway, not much I can say about this version of Aquaman, which, as I said, looks pretty good. Now, this is Queen Mera in her royal robes. This is how she usually looks. She has her royal crown sculpted on her hair, and the hair is also sculpted in the sense that it's either looks like it's being like the wind is blowing at it, or it's just moving that way because she's underwater. And then she has this very shimmering glittery green color of her costume that looks even more glittery now that I see it through the camera. She comes with a trident as her weapon, and she cannot, well, she could probably actually grasp it in both of her hands. I just didn't try. I usually put it straight into this one. But she is from a DC Direct line called The Brightest Day, which is sort of a continuation of the Blackest Night storyline, where the lanterns of all colors go into war, and the heroes of Earth get caught right in the middle of it all. There is another version of her figure that looks far more aggressive, because in that particular figure I'm talking about, Mera is wearing a completely red attire, and in the Green Lantern Wars, one group of lanterns represents rage, and their insignia would be a red collar and a red lantern. So they would have the power of rage and so forth, and for a certain time, I get the impression, I never read the comics so I don't really know the details, but for a certain time it seems that she was a member of that group. And then soon after, then she was released again, and I am assuming she broke away from the Red Lanterns and she was able to return to her present state. She has very little articulation, but at least some basic ones are there. She can move her arm up and down. There is an elbow articulation, none in the wrist, so she cannot do much in regards to wrists. She cannot turn them around. Her head cannot really move at all due to the fact that the hair gets in the way, so she cannot really move at all, her head, either left or right, and there is no ball joint on the head either. She can she has articulation in the knee, so she can bend her leg, both of them, about that much. The legs can only move about that, roughly that much forward, which is not much because the legs are quite stiff. There is no movement to the back of her at all, and there is no articulation in the hips, so she cannot do any splits. So again, more or less almost like a semi-statue. That's how she looks. I don't have an actual stand for her. If there was one, I believe there was one, so I'm improvising with one of these, and she can fit fine on it, and she still stays solid, because if you try to pose her without that plastic stand, she will keel over immediately. She won't be able to stand on her own. Now, the final character of this trio would be Aqualad. Now, this particular Aqualad is the second one in line that was invented for the comics and for the Young Justice cartoon series, and he was created in 2010. His name is John Hardy, or at least that's his alter ego. And what's interesting about him is that, as I said, he's the second Aquaman, and the fact is, what I didn't know until I did some research, that his father is Black Manta. Now that's the interesting part. It seems that Black Manta fell in love with an Atlantean woman, and that's how John Hardy was born. However, he was not raised by his father, who didn't really seem to, I guess, take any interest, or didn't even want to know about him. So what happened with him is that he was raised by his mother and a stepfather. Believing that that stepfather is his actual father, he adopted the father's name, with just a slight different spelling. So this Aqualad's name in Atlantis would be Kaldurham. Kaldurham. Sorry, I believe that's how the pronunciation goes. His stepfather's name would be C-A-L, so Cal, and his name would be, this Aqualad's name would be Cal with K-A-L. But nevertheless, he decided on his own accord to join the good side, so he became a protege of Aquaman and learned under him. In the Justice League animated series, Young Justice series, he appears there as well, but he doesn't look anything like this. He looks slightly different in appearance. For example, he doesn't have as much hair. His hair is blonde in the cartoon and sort of very short, almost like a marine cut. And he is always involved with he was involved, just like the previous Aqualad, he was involved with Teen Titans as well. Now the figure itself looks pretty good, I would say, and I think he has literally no weapons that he came with, because both hands are sculpted as fists. His costume is of a completely different color compared to the first Aqualad before him, whose name was Garth. And Garth, for example, and I unfortunately don't have the figure of the first Aqualad, but the first Aqualad had a sort of a red shirt, blue pants, dark hair, and a belt that's pretty much the same as Aquaman's or as this Aqualad's. So, in comparison, this particular Aqualad has a red shirt with some yellow zigzag stripes on it, dark green pants, and pretty much the same kind of belt like Aquaman in gold that has an A at the front standing for Aqualad. And he has a good set of hair sculpted on him. He has articulation, of course. I'll just show you how much of it. He cannot do any splits. He can move his leg forward about that much. The arms can go all the way up 360 degrees, I would believe, but it's just that they're always exceptionally tight on most of the figures, which I'm not really sure why they do that. There is also movement in the wrist and in the biceps as well, and in the elbow. So in all those areas he has no articulation in the waist or ab crunch, none in the ankles at all. And the head itself is on a ball joint, so he can slant his head left to right, forward, backward, and he can turn his head all the way around, so he can look left and right, and he can look down. So a pretty well done figure. He also has a sort of a necklace that has a shell on it, all covered in a golden color, that he wears around his neck. And I'm not sure is there any significance in particular to that necklace, but it would probably stand as a symbol of his standing in Atlantis or something of that sort. So yeah, that's John Harty, the second Aqualad. Pretty well done figure all around, and a great figure to display. So with this one, I would like to finish my second part on the Aquaman figures and related characters. After this one, I am planning to do one more, which would pretty much finish up my discussion on the Aquaman figures that I have. So until next time, subscribe if you like what you see, and if you have any comments, please put them below, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.